do, and specifically the cap and trade element of it. Bill?
Thanks, everyone. So, the capitalists just always piss me off, always. So, now they ruined the word red. Now we got red states, so we got a red solution. I mean, they're just screwing it up. Before I start, I wanted to just take a few minutes, just a little bit of silence for, we've lost a really great black freedom fighter named Manning Marable, and I think we just need to honor him. He's just an incredible revolutionary thinker, a credible revolutionary activist who really fought for the freedom of the black nation, and I think made contributions that will be felt by the African American people and by the people, oppressed people of this country for many, many years. And I just think we need to honor him, Manning Marable. So, presente. So I just want to say a few things just to kind of give a little context to this discussion about cap and trade. First of all, the United States is the #1 greenhouse gas emitter in the world. And don't believe the shit about China. Because the U.S. has an empire, you've got to include that in. Who gets responsibility for the U.S. maquiladoras? Is that Mexico's emissions or those United States emissions?
U.S.
So the overwhelming burden for greenhouse gas emissions falls on the United States. And we have to see that that's our responsibility to address that. California is the 9th largest greenhouse gas emitter in the world. 9th largest in the world. So there's a special responsibility that we have in California. And one of the ways that this state attempted to address that problem was by adopting legislation called AB 32. And AB 32 was legislation that is intended to significantly reduce California's greenhouse gas emissions by the year 2020. It's not the strongest legislation in the world, but it's probably the best that exists in the whole country. And there's parts of it that are very positive. But from the beginning, it was passed under the administration of Arnold Schwarzenegger, and from the beginning, from the day that it was being developed, he said, I want its centerpiece to be a pollution trading program. I don't care what the evidence shows, I don't care anything else. I want the centerpiece of this greenhouse gas implementation plan to be pollution trading. So one of the things that the environmental justice community in California fought for was for there to be an advisory committee. It's called the Environmental Justice Advisory Committee that worked to advise the Air Resources Board on creating a plan that would not harm the most polluted communities in California, which are working class communities of color, and would in fact bring them benefits. That this plan should not only not harm these communities, like with offset programs, but it should actually bring benefits. This advisory committee is the only committee under the legislation that's mandated throughout the entire history of the legislation, for the entire life of the legislation, and yet we were not given one penny to do our work. It was made up of 20 representatives of the environmental justice movement in California, many of whom have almost no resources, like Dr. Henry Clark from Richmond, who's been working to defend the interests of the African American community in North Richmond for 40 years, has a staff of 1, and had to work on advising in the most complex energy system in the United States. We put in hundreds of hours and made hundreds of pages of recommendations for how this plan should look, and the Air Resources Board ignored almost everything that we proposed. So, for example, we said to them, oil refineries are the largest industrial greenhouse gas emitters in California. All methane, the most potent greenhouse gas there is, all methane in the refineries gets an exemption. There is no requirement to capture methane. We said, why don't you capture methane? The technology has been out there for years. Some refineries even do it. You can also capture all the methane from California's agribusiness. Simple, easy, doable. We can tell you exactly what the emission reductions would be. They ignored that and they said, no, we're going to put the refineries into the cap and trade program. So I'll tell you what happens when you do that, because Los Angeles had a cap and trade program 20 years ago called Reclaim, in which refineries could buy old junk cars. Instead of reducing their emissions, they could buy old junk cars, put them in the junkyard and say, that's how we're reducing our emissions. So what the refineries in Los Angeles did, in Wilmington and San Pedro and El Segundo, is they said, well, we junked 1,000 cars, so we're going to up our emissions. Well, who lives in Wilmington and San Pedro? Or Latinos, or African Americans. So in that cap and trade program, things got worse. Emissions increased. People got sick. People died from those emissions. Benzene and lead and mercury. So that's the evidence. Then they said, so later, as this AB 32 was being developed, they tried a comprehensive cap and trade program in Europe. The most comprehensive effort to try a cap and trade program anywhere in the world. What was the result? Emissions increased. Hedge funds got rich. And ratepayer, the price that people pay for energy increased. That's the evidence. We brought that evidence to the Air Resources Board and they ignored it. So we had no choice, we had to sue them. Because the law says before you adopt a cap and trade program, you have to consider every feasible alternative, including things like capturing methane, ending the methane exemption. And the court upheld our lawsuit. Shocked the hell out of us. So now they have to look at, they cannot go forward with this program. We have stopped cap and trade, the first time anywhere in the world. But they're going to fight us to the death. Already foundations, I just found out from Marta Arguello, who's one of the plaintiffs in the lawsuit, that the Energy Foundation is threatening their funding. We've got politicians calling us, we've got people threatening us. We need your backup on this. Because it's not primarily a legal struggle, it's a political struggle. And we need your support as we go into the next phase of this to make the Air Resources Board look at all the real genuine alternatives and adopt them.